Good evening. What was to honor nice Chisivi? Prayer cloth woman is my Cheyenne name. And that is sota here. That is the Tachim of the hill. Hatafikran, sunny yet. I, I said I am going to tell you a story or some stories about about this character that we call Vihel, who can be very crazy and make us all laugh and be happy. So, this before I begin my storytelling, I want to call us back to the past, a little to the old storytellers. And these old storytellers would make ceremonial motions using the earth and their fingers and touching our grandmother, the earth, Ishkiman grandmother, and then using that earth with which to bless themselves, each of their limbs, their heads, their entire body, particularly their hearts. They say that it is an acknowledgement of Mahel, the great one creator, the everywhere spirit, making us as human beings with all of our limbs, just as Mahel made this earth. So that is something that we acknowledge, and also that they used to say that Mahel, again, the great everywhere spirit, was to witness the story that was to be told and attest to its accuracy. So these stories run in and out of Cheyenne oral traditions, and they bring laughter, they bring us silliness, but they also tell us about how we as human beings can sometimes do crazy and unintentional kinds of things. And as my Northern Cheyenne mother, Josie Siptis, always said as she began a story, she would say, Evavit, Evavit, and that means in the past of long ago, in the ancient time, when life was very new and was most holy. Evavit. You have our sacred stories, but here is Vihel. Vihel is a character, oftentimes referred to as a trickster, that wanders in and out of our literature and constitutes a category of our storytelling traditions as Tzitzistais, the Cheyenne people. He makes you laugh and you just hang your head and close your eyes when he does some of these crazy things that maybe we know some humans could do, that they're capable of, but all in all, they teach us how not to be. And this is what we look for in these stories. Don't be like him. Don't emulate him. Don't be as misguided and as dishonest as he can be. So this story is how Vihel lost his eyes. And Ivavit was wandering alone, and he is always wandering in our stories. He seems to not be able to stay in one place. He seems to be almost a little, well, he's hyperactive, so to speak. Maybe he has something that some people call attention deficit disorder today, but whatever. He's just constantly in motion. just always going somewhere. So he's always wondering the elk, and he walks. And as the elk was walking, he came across one of our Cheyenne, powerful medicine persons. And he watched as this Cheyenne medicine man performed what they thought was a miracle because this Cheyenne man said, Ice, go to the top of that tree. And his eyes left his body and went and perched at the top of this treetop. And then the Cheyenne man said, Eyes, shoot back to my head. Return. And those eyes came back. That was just so astounding to the elk that he decided, I've got to have that power. Well, we as human beings should prepare ourselves for certain kinds of visions that we want to acquire, whether it's going to dance in one of our holy ceremonies or going to fast. But he just wanted it right there. He did not want to put forth any effort. Sounds a little like the me generation that we talk about today. And so he went up to this medicine man with whom he was friends, and he said, Brother, I want that power. I want to be able to do that too. And begged in such an humble way that the medicine man said, Okay, little brother, I will give you this power, but you have to promise one thing. You must never do this more than 4 times in one day. Now, 4 is a sacred number, and it also is a number of completeness. For example, the 4 directions of the world, and you put them all together. It encompasses our entire universe. So he said to the elk brother, you cannot do it more than 4 times in one day. Otherwise, something bad could happen to you or will happen to you. And so the elk stood there. And the power was transferred to him. And so they parted ways. And the elk started his wandering again. And like a child with a new toy, he had to use this very powerful and sacred knowledge. And so he looked for a very tall tree, and he stood and he said, Ice, go to the top of that tall tree. And as he said, and as the medicine man gave him the power, they left and went and perched at the top of this tree. White man couldn't see, however, once his eyes left his head. And so he said, Eyes, shoot back to my head. And they flew back. Oh, he was so pleased with this newly acquired knowledge, this new skill. And just felt so loved by his brother and trusted. And so he wandered on, and he did this a second time. But then he said to himself, that other time was just for practice. This is the first time. So he did it another time, which was really his second time. He did it a third time. He did it a fourth time, and then he said, well, since that first time was only a trial, 1, 2, 3, had one more that he could do. So he continued his walking, and he came to a gathering of people in a grove of beautiful trees. And he went up to them and was not humble at all. He said, I can do miracles. And they looked at him and said, knowing he was fit, oh, you can? Well, show us. He said, okay, watch this. Remember, he was only supposed to do this 4 times in one day. But because that first one, in his mind, only in his mind, was just for practice, he sent his eyes out of his head, which was really the 5th time. And of course, he couldn't see. And he called his eyes back. Eyes, shoot back to my head. His eyes wouldn't come back. And he repeated it again. He said, eyes, shoot back to my head. Nothing happened. And he got so excited, shoot back, shoot back, shoot back, shoot back. And they didn't. And these people just laughed at him. And so finally he sort of felt his way to some bushes and he lay there and he went to sleep. And of course the people were laughing and he could hear them laughing as they left, and he lay there. And then he was wakened when little mice were running across his body and across his face. And he lay there as if he were still asleep. And he even pretended to snore to convince them that he was sleeping. And the little mice would stop. One of them stopped to look at him and he grabbed it. And the others scattered, but he had this little mouse. This little Hvitkis, is what we call mice. This little Hvitkis in his hands, he knew he had it. He said, oh, my little brother, the mouse. He said, Hvitkis, he said, I lost my eyes. I suffered a most horrible tragedy. It was unfortunate. I am blind and I cannot see. Give me one of your eyes. Please, give me one of your eyes. And the little mouse, knowing what was and how he was, said, but my eye is too small for you. And the owl said, that's okay, little brother. He said, all I need to do is to be able to see just a little bit. And always being cooperative and wanting to help the other person, which we're all supposed to be like. The little mouse took one of his eyes and gave it to the elk. The elk put it in his eye socket. And it was so small, it nearly got lost in his head. But he could see just a little bit. And there was a little bit of light. And he was able to get up and walk. And he continued walking and walked into this big bison, this buffalo bull, and felt around. Oh, my brother, the buffalo, I suffered a terrible misfortune and lost my eyes. And our little brother, the mouse, gave me one of his, but I still can't see too well. Would you give me one of your eyes? And this majestic buffalo bull, again, being generous and knowing how we're supposed to help the other person, said, of course, but this eye is going to be too big. And the elk says, that's okay. I can use it. And so he forced that huge buffalo eye into his other eye socket, and he could see again. A little out of balance, see a little light on one side and the other. He could see so well, and it was as if he were looking up into the sun. It was that bright. But he was so pleased, and he went home. And his wife came out to meet him, and she looked at him and said, "Done, chef?" She said, "Now what have you done?" And he says, "Oh, I suffered a terrible misfortune, and I was blinded. but a mouse gave me one eye and a buffalo gave me another. And his wife said, Ahanim Sonny, Ahanim Sonny, means you crazy thing, you crazy man, Ahanim Sonny. He said, I suppose that if this medicine man gave you something again, you would say, oh, yes, I love that. She said, but be careful. One of these days, he might give you a pair of horns or a tail. And the elk just stood there and he said, okay. And so that's the trickster story of how he lost his eyes and regained his eyesight because of the generosity of the little mouse, the little Hvitkis, and the buffalo, the Hvitkis, that he was restored to with eyesight. But he did not seem to care that this powerful knowledge that was given to him, he had misused. There was only one rule he was told: I will give you this power, but you cannot use it more than 4 times in one day. Surely he could count. Yes, he did. He knew how to count because he said, oh, this first one is only for practice. Well, he couldn't fool himself. And he knew that something very bad would result from his not following those very strict instructions and carrying the power that was just handed to him in a very sacred and an humble way, the way we are supposed to in terms of gifts of knowledge, and just being Cheyenne-hearted people who have this crazy man in these stories who tells us how we should be or how we should not be. Very good teaching stories. In the context of where we are today, we can certainly learn from the elk. He was told to do certain things. There was certain knowledge in a way that he was to be. Don't use this gift more than 4 times in one day. That's all I ask of you. And we know that. And today, when we are told by our medical people, make sure you wash your hands before you eat, after you touch things, maybe if you go outside for a little bit to take in the wonderful sunlight and breathe the beautiful air that comes from the wind. You have to wash your hands. And we know to do that. And we're not going to be like the elk. We're going to wash those hands before we eat, after we touch things, to make sure that we do not bring anything that is bad to ourselves. Another one of the safety tips that we should observe is if you sneeze or you cough, make sure you do so into a tissue or into your elbow. It is very important because you may have a little bug of a cold and you don't want to be transmitting that or passing it on to other people. That is just a habit of cleanliness that we should follow throughout our lives and not just now. And so we have to listen. We have to also adhere to social distancing. Now, those are 2 brand new words. I don't know if they would know how to use them or not. But anyway, for us, it means when you go out into an environment and there might be people that you see, or you're going to go into a grocery store, make sure that you maintain that distance of 6 feet, because that ugly bug, that serious bug, can't be transmitted if we maintain that distance from one another in a social setting. And so that we need to make sure that we stay in our houses when there's a curfew imposed. If the curfew is at 10 o'clock p.m. or 8 o'clock or whatever it is, it means that we must stay in our homes and be at home and inside with family to have a wonderful dinner together, to be family and to eat a wonderful meal, spend time with one's parents, one's family. That's a wonderful opportunity. We need to always look for the good in things. And obviously, this medicine man looked at Bill and said, I can trust him. I, I can trust him with my knowledge, and he will do the right things. And so we know what we have to do when it comes to taking care of our bodies so that we do not bring any viruses into our home, to ourselves, but especially to our elders. Some of our elders are very weak, and they represent our past. They speak our languages. They hold our stories. They have given us a life. They are our beloved category of people, beloved elders whom we should honor and respect. And so we do not want to be around them to bring any kind of virus to them, because they are most vulnerable, particularly if they have diabetes, like we have so many of our older people carrying with them today, or if they have heart problems or high blood pressure or any other illness. We have to recognize that and make sure that we do all within our individual power to keep ourselves clean and our families clean, and particularly our elders. Now, I am sure that Cheyenne medicine man would have told Phil what to do, but we have to make sure that we do not know what Phil would do. We have to do what is best for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, but especially for our elders who hold our past and love us, because we represent hope to them. Above all, we must always be hopeful that there's going to be another tomorrow, another time where once again our grandmother, the earth, in this world will be healthy once more. Remember that. I'm one of those grandmothers. I'm one of those elders, and I love you.